Pete Hegseth made a statement talking about those sit-down conversations, whether they were planned or unplanned or whatever happened with Iran. And, of course, they pushed him and said, hey, are you going to rule out war? And who would? If you are Pete Hegseth, you can't say those kind of statements because you never know what another country is going to do. You want to try to avoid war.
President Trump is dead serious on this issue. He's dead serious that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He's said that for 20 years. He's been consistent. That is clear. He's dead serious that he wants it done at the negotiating table. He wants it done peacefully. Yeah. And that's why he's going straight to these talks. He set that deadline. These were productive talks yesterday. I don't want to get ahead of our skis. Steve Witkoff does a fantastic job, but it was a good step, and they're gonna go at it again on Saturday. But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region, we've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to, we will, to prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
The media now is trying to characterize this as things like Pete Hegseth won't rule out war. I mean, even our title is that he's preparing for war. That is actually the job of the Secretary of Defense, is to always be prepared for a potential war or the option of war. But you are going to start to see the media try to spin this as President Trump and Pete Hegseth are looking for war. I think what they are doing is, once again, the negotiation that it takes to actually get to a point of getting some real resolution. During the Obama administration with the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was the first Iran nuclear deal that the Obama administration put forward. That was where Iran gets money, we get pseudo oversight through the UN and through the IAEA, and nothing really happens except for Iran gets closer and closer to a nuclear bomb. There was no real credible threat that if they violated this and kept going forward, which we know that they've been violating it the entire time,
of course,
that the United States would actually do anything. If we are serious that the largest state sponsor of terrorism cannot have a nuclear weapon, because we know what they would do with that, and we know that the nuclear arms race that would be set off in the Middle East, the least stable region of the globe right now, then it has to be coupled with a real, serious, credible threat of military action to take out that. So I don't think that that's what the president wants. I think he is genuinely one of the least war-hungry presidents that we've seen in our lifetime, for sure.
And he will push an angle saying, hey, maybe scare him a little. But our hope is that we don't get there, because you don't want to be in a war with Iran. I think we need to also have a little global reset for those who maybe don't understand the region as well. Iran is not Gaza. Iran is not, this. I mean, they are helping funding all of that. But when in terms of their reach, their impact, their power, this is a real player on the world stage, and a scary real player on the world stage. When you're talking about, look up cities like Tehran, go look at it. It's, again, this is not what you picture as really the Middle East. This is a real a real area that could do real havoc and damage to America even.
It takes serious, tough talk to, one, even get them to the negotiating table. There's that famous quote where President Trump said that, he didn't like Ambassador John Bolton, and he was terrible, awful, said all that. But he said, he was useful because everyone thought he was crazy enough to drop a nuclear bomb on them. And so there has to be that credible threat of military force if you want someone like Iran that only knows how to react to that to come to the actual table to get something done.
Not only did Pete Hegseth say, hey, we're not going to rule out war with Iran, it was essentially confirmed that there were those face-to-face talks, and round 2 is on the horizon. And that's a good thing, according to the administration. They said, hey, you've had our issues in the past with Iran, maybe having some issues currently with Iran, but we can sit down face-to-face and have this issue at a negotiating table instead of potentially in the battlefield.
This first round of talks that took place in Oman over the weekend on Saturday, there were some discrepancies in how they were described. The U.S. said we'll be having direct talks. The Iranians pushed back on that and said, no, they're indirect talks. And what the reality is that they were the indirect talks where they're in two different conference rooms and there's a mediator that goes in between. That is the traditional style when you don't have this diplomatic relationship with the foreign power. However, there was pre-planned a meeting between Steve Witkoff, who's the president's envoy on these things, and the foreign minister of Iran. But this pre-planned meeting where the two spoke for about 45 minutes was staged to appear as a chance meeting, a chance opportunity.
Some would say like a tarmac meeting.
Right. Well, I wouldn't go that far. That has bad connotations, Logan. But yes, so they
just
did.
Being funny, Will.
They did speak for about 45 minutes. This has been described by administration officials that they are satisfied with how the first round went, and that they will be continuing these talks in Rome this coming Saturday. So a second round, this time in a European country, and it's very interesting. When in Rome.
Yeah, no, I said, well, it's in Rome.
Right, but when in Rome, negotiate nuclear peace.
Yeah, Rome, if you want to.
We have to remember that the Iranians are a country that the government lies about what they have in terms of the nuclear programs. They outmaneuvered John Kerry when talking about heavy water, when they're talking about the number of centrifuges. John Kerry went public saying that they got rid of all their centrifuges. And that just wasn't true. We have to remember that people like Wendy Sherman have been duped by the Iranians. We in the Trump administration need to make sure that we are very clear-eyed about who we're negotiating with, and we need to verify. You need to almost verify first before you trust them.
These talks that happened over the weekend, obviously the reporting is that it kind of was distrustful at the beginning from both sides for obvious reasons. Yeah. The Iranians were bringing up the fact that, well, President Trump dropped out of the JCPOA. Why should we trust you to make a deal? And the Trump administration doesn't believe that the JCPOA was much of a deal at all. So you look at that, that's where they started from that point where, like, you pulled out of the last deal. Why would we negotiate with you? But then officials on both sides say that they see a path forward after several hours of talks on Sunday. So the Iranians are still saying that the next round probably won't be that direct format. We'll see. There's a week for them to kind of put this together. It's always interesting when you look at how much theatrics go on with just a meeting with diplomacy, how much is done behind the scenes, beforehand, afterwards. But we are looking at this. It should be in Rome this Saturday, that they are both saying they see some sort of path forward. We know that what President Trump wants is something that is more in line with what Libya did when Muammar Gaddafi completely dismantled his weapons of mass destruction program. This is what he and Prime Minister Netanyahu talked about when Bibi Netanyahu was in the United States last week, that this would be not just a, hey, Let's hold it down. Let's put controls here so you can't do this breakout period, which is what the entire Obama administration plan was. This would be, we want to see concrete, you dismantling the program and shipping the materials out of your country.